Kickmaster for NES. Haven't heard of it? Don't worry, neither did I or pretty much anyone else I've talked to. This was an obscure NES game that had fallen into my hands simply by chance, so it's safe to say I went into it with no prior opinions or feelings about it. Although the cover art may have caught my attention. Ooh, doesn't this guy look badass? So is it good? Is it bad? Let's hop right into it and I'll tell you all about it. Okay, so here's how the story to Kickmaster goes. This peaceful kingdom gets attacked and burned by some evil wizard named Belzed. King and queen are killed, their only daughter, the princess, is kidnapped. Every single member of the royal guard's been defeated except one single knight. Basically, everything's just gone to hell. Anyway, the single knight that's been left over and his younger brother go and try to save the princess. Yeah, that sounds like a good plan. Let's see how that goes. The two brothers go to save the princess, they confront a skeleton, and the older brother, who's in full armor and has a weapon, is killed instantly. So now you've got to save the princess, using, you guessed it, your martial arts kicking skills. Can't argue with that. Well, your goal is to save the princess, and to do that, you're on a long journey to Belzed's castle. Each stage gets you closer and closer to the castle while dealing with Belzed's dark army of darkness. So right away, I do have to say, your character sort of jumps like he's on the moon. Usually that's a bad thing, but here I think it works okay, because if you get your attacks down right, then you can actually hit the enemies just fine. Another thing I should point out is when you defeat an enemy, a bunch of stuff flies out of them. What is that? This is actually one of the aspects that I think makes this game pretty unique. Unlike most NES platformers, this game has experience points and magic, kind of like an RPG. But how do you get that? Well, when you defeat an enemy, multiple things fly out of them. Health, magic, and experience points. Now this is where I think it gets interesting. There's only a limited amount of time you have to grab any of these items. Now while that may sound annoying to some of you, I think it's actually interesting and it adds some strategy to the game that you wouldn't normally see in something like this. You actually have more of a choice and a chance to get what you need. Say you're low on health, you can go straight for the health. Say you want to level up, then you can go for the experience points. Or you could just try to get all three of them, it's definitely possible. But then that's where the poison comes in. Yeah, that's right, poison. So you really have to pay attention to what you're grabbing. You can't just go in there every time and just try to get everything. Just about every sort of attack that you have is a kick, and he has a lot of them. Yeah, you've got your high kick, vertical press kick, sweep kick, knee drop, slide kick, double front kick, flying kick, including some secret ones that you're not even allowed to see yet. Whoa, 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 this is a lot to take in. Is this really an NES game? Yeah, it is. Well, damn, there sure is a lot of attack choices for a controller with only so many buttons. And of course, for any game with a lot of attacks, it's going to have a lot of enemies to use the attacks on. So, time for an enemy roll call. Yeah, you've got skeletons, grim reaper looking things, demon dogs, flying bat demons, zombies, wizards, lizard knights, and gorillas with capes. Belzed's army's pretty crazy. No wonder the royal guards were defeated. So at this point, you may be thinking, Jay, as much as I like kicking enemies to death, is there anything more? Well, along with gaining new types of kicks as you level up, there's also some magic abilities. Oh, the magic attacks! I completely forgot about those. Okay, there's two different ways to obtain a magical ability in this game. The first is beating a boss. You beat a boss, you get a power. This is going to happen simply by you progressing through the game. There's no way to avoid it, you're going to get these powers. The second way, you gotta do a little more work. Hidden in almost every level is a second magic ability. It could either be somewhere where it's a little more dangerous and out of your reach, or it could be under a platform somewhere, or if it's like the first level, it could just be a treasure chest that's out in plain sight that you hopefully did not skip over. Most of the magic abilities are pretty helpful. Like for instance in the first level, if you happen to find the magic ability before reaching the boss, it's really helpful. See, you fight this flying witch enemy and she just sort of stays up there in the air while these two other enemies are on the ground attacking you and you gotta keep jumping and hitting her in the face. But if you found the ability which sends these flying orbs up into the air, you could pretty much defeat her no problem. See? Piece of cake. Other magic abilities are one that lets you step on dangerous floors, one that gives you a little bit of extra health, one that gives you a little more extra health. I like how it says a lot instead of like double, but anyways. One that summons a massive storm of lightning that just surrounds you. And this one, I'm not even sure what it does. I guess when you use it in certain areas it makes items visible behind stuff, but you can kind of see it anyway. I don't know. So just try out the different abilities on different enemies and bosses and see what works best. So what kind of game is Kickmaster exactly? Is it a platformer? Is it an RPG? Well, there's plenty of side-scrolling jumping action, like in a platformer, but then again, you get experience points and there's big bosses, like an RPG. So you know what? I'm not really sure what kind of game it is, but it's pretty fun and it's pretty unique. Now I know some of you may be thinking, but Jay, Zelda 2 was like a side-scrolling NES game, and it had experience points and magic and all that. That's true, it did, but Zelda 2 is more of an adventure game. You actually roam around and explore, and there's a map screen where you're actually going from place to place, and you do a lot of stuff before you actually progress through the game. Kickmaster is linear, there really isn't much exploring. You're just going left and right most of the time, sometimes down to up, and you're just getting from the start of the game to the end of the game. It truly is an NES side-scrolling platformer with RPG elements. And hey, it turned out pretty good. Something I should definitely not leave out is the final stage of the game, Belzed's Haunted Tower. So the final stage is basically this lengthy trial of enemies, deadly platforming, stage hazards, and boss after boss after boss. This is probably where I should mention the flying kick maneuver. This move is vital to completing this part of the game. Normal jumping will just not suffice much of the time. See this jump right here? Without the flying kick you're screwed, so make sure to level up. When you finally reach Belzed, you'll be happy to know that she's definitely the hardest boss in the game, so no build-up leading to a weak end boss. You first take out her knights, who by themselves are probably the hardest normal enemy in the game. Then you face Belzed herself. Okay, I know this is kinda late to mention this, but let me talk about the knee drop for a second. Out of all those different moves that you have to choose from, the knee drop is probably the best. Nearly any enemy coming from nearly any conceivable angle is just weak against it seems. Time it right and they're dead. You know what, let's just have a quick knee drop montage so you can really see what's up. Knee drop montage, knee drop montage, knee drop, knee drop, knee drop montage, knee drop montage, knee drop montage, knee drop, knee drop, knee drop montage, knee drop montage, yeah! Yeah, the knee drop. Well, now you know what move you're probably going to be using against Belzed. That doesn't mean she's going to go down without a fight. Of course, you've got nothing to worry about, because I've got a trick up my sleeve. The Earthquake. This is the final magic ability that you get in the game, and it's definitely worth the wait. You use it on her and she's stunned, completely open to attacks. Of course, even then you can still manage to get yourself hurt if you're not too careful. So just use your life magic when you're low on health, and as long as you have enough magic points, you should be good. Come on, come on, come on, come on. Come on, come on, come on, come on. Come on, come on, come on. Yes! So after Belzed is defeated, your character flies in to save the princess using wings that he now has for some reason. Anyway, they fly off into the sunset whilst Belzed's castle burns to the ground, a fitting ending. It also mentions that the Kickmaster disappeared, never to be seen from again. Why? Probably because the entire kingdom was pretty much destroyed already. What's the princess even going back to? In fact, what did Belzed even want with the princess anyway? Ah well, I guess we can't look too deep into the story of an 8-bit game. And look, the credits actually break the fourth wall, calling you a fellow video gamer. Never would have guessed that the term gamer was already being used back then. It also says if you press start, you could play again at a harder difficulty. No thanks, Cal. So how can I sum up Kickmaster? It's fun, it's cheesy, and overall it's pretty unique. While the animation is limited and the controls aren't the tightest, the visuals and amount of content in the game are actually quite impressive. Now, it's interesting to note that by the time Kickmaster was released, the Super Nintendo had already been on store shelves for quite a while. It's no wonder nobody remembers this game. Everyone was busy moving on to Nintendo's next console. Well, that, my friends, was Kickmaster for NES. Not a very well-known game, but very fun. I highly recommend you pick it up if you can. Well, hope you liked the review. There's more coming soon. I'm gonna go watch some Breaking Bad. Welcome to another J Reviews. Today we've got Cybernoid for NES. Now, don't get too excited. This game's a little... well, it's kinda... maybe I should just show you. This is Cybernoid, or Cybernoid the Fighting Machine. Before you start the actual game, you have a choice of 3 difficulty levels: easy, hard, and lethal. This is an immediate minor annoyance for me. Whenever I'm playing a game, I like to go for normal, and then work my way to hard if the game has enough replay value, avoiding easy altogether. But here, it skips straight from easy to hard. What the hell? One reason I like NES games so much is that they tend to not have different difficulties at all. Just the challenge that the game is programmed to have, with sometimes an option of a harder difficulty after beating it, like Kickmaster for instance. Maybe this is just me, but I don't like it. Guess I'll go with easy to start off with. So, notice anything yet? Yeah, it's hard to miss the loud droning of your spaceship taking place of what should be music. Even the laser sound effects sound pretty bad for NES standards. But audio is just one aspect of a game. What's really important is the gameplay itself. But you'll find out pretty quickly that the controls are probably even worse than the in-game sound effects. You hold up and you go up. You let go and your spaceship lazily floats back down to the bottom of the screen. Not that bad in theory, but just wait until you meet your first enemies. So at the second screen, you're greeted with this school of jellyfish things that make it nearly impossible to pass without dying at least a couple of times. Maybe if you could shoot down it would help, or if there was just more of a pattern. I mean, you can wait until an opening clears, but an enemy can easily appear below you by random chance before you make it to the next screen. On top of that, it's not like you could speed up when you're dropping. You have to let gravity slowly pull you down and hope to God an enemy doesn't spawn below you in the process. It's not impossibly hard or anything, just a bit annoying that there isn't much consistency or use of skill. Oh, and I know I already talked about the lack of audio quality, but check this out. When you die, your spaceship makes the most pathetic exploding noise I've ever heard. I mean, listen to that. It's ridiculous. Imagine hearing that in any other game when something explodes. Well, that was fun. Okay, now back to the... wait a second. What the hell? Am I hearing music now all of a sudden? But how? Did it just take a while to start up? Hang on. Okay, luckily I actually have the instruction book to this game, so maybe we can find out what's going on. Some Cybernoid, turn power controls. Here we go. Okay, so according to the booklet, Cybernoid has 2 exciting sound effect modes. To switch between them, you pause and you press the A button. The first mode is for basic music and sound effects. Guess that's what we're on right now since we're hearing music. And the other is super sound effects. No music, just crisp explosions, futuristic laser sounds, and more. Super sound effects. Super sound effects. Crisp explosions. Futuristic laser sounds. Is this some kind of joke? Well, okay, screw super sound effect mode. I'd rather have music. Anyway, where was I? Okay, so from what I can tell, the goal of this game is to go from screen to screen, avoiding or destroying any enemies in your path. Survive long enough to make it to your landing pad, and you're off to the next area. In between, you'll encounter a range of enemies and obstacles, but you'll also find power-ups to help you along your journey. To be honest, this actually sounds pretty interesting in concept. Going from room to room, facing new, more dangerous trials at each turn, avoiding enemies, just trying to make it to the end. But here you're forced to do it in a clunky spaceship and you see the same enemies over and over again. I don't think the game developers made what they set out to create. But let's go a little bit more into detail about that. Okay, first off, the enemies and obstacles in this game are pretty limited. You've got the jellyfish things from earlier. You've got these green blob things that shoot bubbles and do nothing else. These shooter things that are easily avoided. Missile launchers that are motion sensitive. Death elevator things that kill you if you touch them. And finally, bubble machines. They also make bubbles, but unlike the green blobs, they cannot be destroyed. Now, I'm not just saying that more enemies automatically makes a better game. I'm just saying they should put more thought into what they have. There's a green blob here, there's some death elevators there. Sometimes it doesn't make sense at all. Like right here, you just pass by the enemy and then shoot through the blocks. If they had moved the enemy up higher so you had to hurry through the narrow passageway, then that might have made more sense, instead of just placing the enemy in a seemingly random location. Now I want to move on to what's probably the biggest flaw in this game. But before I do that, I'm going to have to introduce the weapons. First off, we've got the bombs. These are probably the most important weapon in the game, but I'll talk about them later. Genocide missile. Use this and you can destroy all the enemies on the screen. The shield. This makes you invincible for a limited amount of time. Bouncers, they basically bounce all over the place and kill some enemies. And seekers, they're like bombs, but they lock onto your enemy. Okay, now about those bombs. This is the most important weapon in the game. Why? Because they're necessary for progressing. Whether it's blowing up some enemies or clearing a path, these things are mandatory to getting through some of these areas. Unfortunately, they're also plagued by two fatal flaws. First off, the hit detection. It's terrible. Sometimes it'll destroy the target, sometimes it won't. I guess it might depend on where you hit the enemy, but it all seems pretty random to me. I mean look, direct hits and nothing, and then over here it goes straight over the thing and it destroys it. Okay, you ready for the coup de grace? Well, you start off with 20 bombs at the beginning of the game, and that's it. You have to ration them to make sure you can make it through the game. Like here, for instance. To my knowledge, bombs are the only thing that can get rid of these blocks. But guess what? If you run out, then you're screwed. Your bombs are only replenished when you die. Even when you make it to the next level, you keep the amount you had before. Okay, look, I played through the entire first level without dying once, picked up all the power-ups, and they still didn't replenish my bombs at the end. You have to die to progress. It's the only way. Now usually this is about where I'd end my review, but I got curious about this game and I wondered how it was received when it first came out. To my surprise, the game seemed to have universal praise from different magazines and websites, and overall it was a critical success. This made no sense to me. Then I found out that originally Cybernoid was a Commodore 64 game. Huh. So that's why the music and audio sound so primitive. It was probably a straight port. I wonder what the Commodore version sounds like. You know what, I'm done. Okay, well, that's gonna be my only reference to Mission Impossible, because I don't know that much about it, to be honest. But you came here to see a review, so let's get started. Mission Impossible for NES. Hey look, Konami made this game. Well, that's a good start already. So the game begins with you getting a message from your boss, I guess. Good morning, Jim. Dr. O and his secretary have been kidnapped. The message self-destructs and you're given your mission. Rescue Dr. O and his secretary from the Sinister 7 underground hideout. Sounds simple enough? So as you start the game, you'll notice your character in a top-down perspective on a street populated by old women and suspicious-looking men in coats that sometimes attack you. Oh, I guess the old women attack you too. You have a selection of 3 characters that you can switch between at any time, as long as they haven't run out of health. They each have their own abilities, but in order to talk about them, I guess I should give them names. Well, the message in the beginning says Jim, and this is the first character the game starts you off with, so this green-vested gentleman is Jim, I guess. As for the black guy with the suit, I have the urge to call him Gus for some reason. And finally, the guy with the glasses. I don't know, Steve? Okay, so like I said, they each have their own abilities. Jim has the longest range with his gun, and can also use bombs. Steve uses these boomerang things and can disguise himself so enemies can't see you. The disguise is so good that you can just attack enemies while you're wearing it. Ah, I didn't know red was such a good disguise. And finally Gus. He has the shortest ranged attack using his fists, and his secondary weapon are these gas bombs that stun your enemies. Personally, Gus is my favorite. Why? Because he's a hell of a lot faster than the other 2 guys, in terms of walking and attacking. I mean, look at those punches. So anyway, the game doesn't really give you much direction on what to do, so your best bet is to... Did I just get hit by a car? My god, that's terrible. Look, my character died. I can't even select him anymore. Jesus. So yeah, if your character dies or gets arrested, I guess, from attacking innocent civilians, then they aren't selectable anymore, and as far as I know, you can't get them back, so be careful. So, like I was saying, since you don't really have any info on where the Sinister 7's hideout is, your best course of action is to go into random houses. Sometimes you get hints on what to do, other times this happens. Yeah, thanks a lot. Go into the alley. Okay then. Well, this sure was a smart idea. The place is crawling with enemies and no Sinister 7 hideout in sight. Okay, wait, so there's a lever here? What does it do? Nothing? What's this? Watch for switches in areas 1 through 6? Okay, what area am I in right now? 5 switches in area 1? Okay, that narrows it down a bit, but where the hell am I? Yeah, coming into this alleyway was a waste of time. So finally, if you wander around enough, you'll come across this guy that gives you a pass into the Sinister 7's hideout. And then after some more wandering, you'll find this room that has a secret panel here. You just won't know it unless you're Gus. I guess he's the tech guy too. This puzzle is actually pretty cool. You change the numbers based on the sound you hear and you find the right combination. Once you get through, you're headed down to the sewers, but not before seeing some odd side view of your character descending the stairs. What was the point of that? When you finally reach the sewers, you'll notice there's even more enemies than in that alleyway. Now that's a good sign already. Not only do you have to deal with enemies with guns, but these annoying ones with shields that knock you into the sewer waters, killing you instantly. But worst of all are probably these big red guys that throw these firecrackers at you, taking away half of your health. Your best bet would be to play it safe with Steve and use your disguise. Enemies, enemies, and more enemies. Is this ever gonna end? Whoa, okay, the wall killed me. Well, that's new. Well, how the hell do I get past it? Ah, damn it. Now I need to start over. But even if I get that far again, how do I get past those walls? There has to be some way... Wait a second. No, don't tell me that lever from earlier. But I used it, right? Oh, I guess I turned it off and then back on again. Because when you hold up, the switch just goes from side to side. Well, let's try this again. Maybe the hostages are behind that wall. Nope, just more enemies. In fact, more enemies than before. Okay, this is actually getting kind of hard. Okay, starting over again. Get the pass, go into the alleyway, move the switch, go back to the... damn it. You know what I just realized? At first I thought that the guys driving the cars were enemies trying to kill you, but sometimes they hit other enemies too. In fact, you hear them honk their horn before they hit you. So does that mean this town just has really aggressive drivers? That's terrible. Anyway, where was I? Get the pass, go into the alleyway, pull the lever. Wait, now I don't have guts, so I can't get through this door now. Is there no way? Guess I gotta restart again. Okay, pass, alley, switch, sewers. Okay, time to put my gaming skills into high gear. I'm gonna beat this. Okay, come on. Yeah, I did it! What? There's nothing here. Well, this water looks different from the sewer water from earlier. Can I swim in it? No. All this just led to a dead end. So I search around the sewer, searching, nothing. Maybe I should just give up. No, you know what? I'm not giving up yet. I'm gonna see what's past that part. Okay, I searched, and guess what? I actually found an entrance that I'd never been in before. I just didn't realize that it was a door. Go through the door on the orange side. Yeah, thanks for the hint, pal. And look, another lever. Please don't tell me that does what I think it's gonna do. Of course. Yeah, who didn't see that one coming? But hey, at least we made it past the first floor. Finally, made it to another area. We might beat this game after all. Down to my last guy. This is pretty tough. But you know what? I'm feeling confident. I bet those hostages are right around the corner. Yeah, in fact, I think they're closer than they Yeah, that's where I'm gonna call it quits. So, Mission Impossible. It's not the worst game I've ever played, but I don't see myself finishing it anytime soon. If you think it's something you might like, then go ahead and give it a try. Meanwhile, I'm gonna go put this back where I found it. Man, I just can't figure out what game to review for Halloween. I've got plenty of horror-related games, but none of them seem right to review. Maybe my brother has a game. No. What the hell's this doing here? Okay, where was I? No. Hey, what's this? Splatterhouse. That sounds promising. Let's try it out. Interesting title screen choice, guys. Okay, so Splatterhouse definitely doesn't waste time in showing just how gruesome and violent a game it is. When you're not looking at a menu full of guts, you're looking at a loading screen of two monsters trying to kill each other. So what is this game about anyway? Let me tell you. So in Splatterhouse you play as a guy named Rick. On a particularly spooky night, Rick follows his girlfriend into a creepy mansion for some reason. I guess he's there to meet some weird scientist or something.
Oh, and leave you alone in there with Dr. Weird?
So they're chatting about going to some concert.
Have fun. Look, I got us tickets for that concert at the Arkham
When they're
Horror
interrupted
Room,
with
You betcha.
something, and before you know it, Rick is on the floor bleeding to death while Jenny gets kidnapped. All hope seems lost until a strange mask, voiced by Jim Cummings, tells Rick that he can help him.
Who am I? Let's just say I'm God. Your God. At least the only God that's listening right now. You're gonna have to learn to love the pain. There's a lot more of it to come.
Rick is transformed into a hulking monster, death metal music begins to play, and the game begins. So, what do you do in this game? Well, you kill stuff. Kill more stuff. Kill other stuff. And you kill stuff. Call it a beat 'em up, hack and slash, whatever. You kill stuff. Okay, so you kill things, there's lots of blood and violence, and you're ripping things' heads off. Fun. Violent, bloody fun. What's not to like? Okay, so the main game isn't all that interesting to me, but I did find something else. The original Splatterhouse game, an arcade game from the 80s that was notorious for the amount of blood and violence it had. You know what? Maybe this will be better. So the original Splatterhouse begins much of the same way. On a dark and spooky night, Rick and Jennifer find themselves in a creepy mansion. Rick is apparently killed, and Jennifer is kidnapped. That's when the mask comes and resurrects Rick, starting the game. The game is a side-scrolling platformer with some beat-em-up elements. Your goal is to navigate the mansion all the while dealing with its gruesome inhabitants. And boy is it challenging. With each stage comes more and more frightening enemies and challenges, each ending with a big boss fight. The first stage is sort of like an introductory level. It gets you used to the game mechanics. Your main attacks are punching, sweep kicking, and air attacking. But along the way you find weapons as well. There's a sliding kick maneuver, but it's a bit tricky to pull off, so I don't use it very often. You know, it's actually really impressive. There's tons of different death animations depending on what weapon you use, depending on what enemy you kill. It's really cool. You can tell they put a lot of work into this game, and that they might have been slightly insane. The boss of the first stage is a room full of these gross parasite things. Survive long enough and eventually the onslaught ends. Oh wait, there was one more. This won't be the first time the Slaughterhouse plays a trick on you when you think you're finished, so stay alert. The second stage is like a slightly harder version of the first one, still getting you into the groove of the game. One thing that's new is this water segment where you have to jump over spikes and kill these swamp monster things. The boss of this stage is a room, a haunted room I guess you'd say. First you dodge the falling debris, then you fight a chair. Beat the chair and you're up against some haunted knives. Yeah, that's right, Rick is so tough he just punches knives. Finally you kill this haunted painting and you're home free. Oh, scratch that. The chandelier will fall and kill you instantly if you don't move out of the way. So do it all over again, move out of the way, and then you're home free. Stage 3 finds you outside. It introduces some new enemies such as bats and these annoying zombie dogs. And probably the most disturbing enemy in the game. These bloated fetus things. Ugh. Just look at it. But hey, you also get an awesome weapon, the shotgun. Mow down enemies, yeah. This makes the game too easy. Oh crap. Till you come up to the third stage boss, that is. Sorta reminds me of the chainsaw guy from Resident Evil 4, except this guy has 2 chainsaws. For hands. Your best bet here is to save up your shotgun ammo for the boss. Even then it won't be enough to take him down, so get a few more hits in and you should be done for. On to the next stage. Stage 4 is when things really start ramping up in difficulty. Along with your normal enemies, you've got to worry about these spinning blade things that move way too slow. If you fall down a hole, you'll have to go through an entire extra room full of these parasite things you fought earlier. And probably worst of all, a room of mirrors that creates doppelganger Ricks that all have the same moves that you do. So once you're able to get past all this without wasting all your lives, you're on to the boss. This time you're up against a floating upside down cross encircled with masks. Make sure you pick up the axe, you're doubtful to finish this boss fight without it. Although the masks are a pain, your main focus is the cross. Hit it enough times and you send this specter back to where it came. The ending to this level intrigues me. The music that plays, the setting, and the way that Rick just stands there, it almost makes it feel like the end of the game. But nope, you've still got to save your girlfriend. Alright, here it is, Stage 5. Although the rest of the game from here on out is hard as hell, this is probably the most difficult stage for me. Why? Okay, first you've got to get through a room of possessed chairs. Not too bad so far. But next, you've got to deal with a room full of piles of dismembered arms. Doesn't sound too bad at first, but believe me, this sucks. The holes are in between these sloped surfaces, so you can't stop and wait for the arms to be out of the way. If you try, you'll slide into the pit and die. The only way for you to get past this part unscathed is for you to play the room over and over again until you figure out the right pattern. Then, once you've memorized it completely, you can get through the room at a good even pace. But we're not done with Stage 5 yet. After that, you've got another water segment, but this time you don't have a weapon to help fend yourself off from the swamp monsters. Since the monsters have a longer reach than you, I suggest to use your jumping attack to your advantage. Next you have a mini-boss, this orange skull-face thing that summons zombies to attack you. There's something about this mini-boss that I really like. Maybe it's because the enemies here are more cartoony than gruesome. Anyway, the main problem here is that if you let him, he'll just resurrect all the enemies that you kill, and then even more on top of that. So what you have to do is attack him before he's able to finish his chant. What is he saying anyway? I'm the cooler. I'm Cthulhu. So once you finish with this guy, you're still not done. There's one more room before the boss in Stage 5. In this final stretch, you need to deal with the regular monsters, zombie dogs, and now these ghost girls that drop skulls and laugh at you. Ugh, so annoying. But once you've finally gotten past all this, you've found your girlfriend? Well, sorta. Except that they turn her into a monster. Yeah, that's right. The boss of this stage is your own girlfriend. Thought that the previous rooms were tough? This is what really makes Stage 5 so difficult. It took me a while to figure out a good way to attack her without getting hurt. So I'm just going to cut the crap and tell you what to do. You see, unlike most bosses in, well, just about any game, you can actually touch her without getting hurt. So what you do is wait for her to do a high jump, meet her in mid-air, and then kick her in the opposite direction. That way when she lands and tries to attack you, she won't be able to reach. Seems like once you've got this strategy down, you should be good to go, right? Wrong. As the fight goes on, she changes things up, doing smaller jumps. This is what screws me up the most. I found out eventually that your best course of action here is to stand still and punch her, but even then it only works about half the time. This is a boss that you need to get lucky at when fighting. When you lose, you have to go through that hellish marathon of rooms that I described earlier, so you're going to get plenty of practice getting good at them by the time you beat this stage. Finally, when you do win, you've saved your girlfriend and you can go home, right? Nope, she apparently dies in Rick's arms and turns to dust. Well, I really wasn't expecting that, but then again, what can I expect from this game? So Rick jumps into a hole in Stage 6? How the hell is there a Stage 6? Your goal is to save your girlfriend and you sorta killed her. Oh well, here's Stage 6. This time the entire stage is one giant hallway that leads to the boss itself. This is a double-edged sword. It's good because that means you don't need to go through a bunch of memorizations for different rooms like in Stage 5, but it's bad because that means you're stuck with however much health you have when you get to the boss. Losing will lead you straight back to the beginning of the stage. Here you need to avoid and or kill these bubbles that drop from the ceiling and appear from the floor. Preferably you'll want to kill them since they turn into these annoying enemies if you let them. Not too much strategy to say here, just survive. Once you've reached the end you'll see what looks like a giant heart. Maybe it's the heart of the mansion? I guess if Rick should get revenge on anything it'd be the mansion itself. This thing takes about 1,000,000 hits, but its only real defense are those bubble things, so keep up your guard and just wail on the damn thing. Eventually it'll die. Oh, and for the love of God, step out of the way afterwards. That puddle of acid that the heart leaves behind will kill you. Nice try. Well, we're finally here, the final level of the game, Stage 7. So after all that, I bet you can only imagine what to expect now. Well, in Stage 7 you have two things to avoid: flaming logs that roll across the ground, and flaming people that jump in groups. Neither of these are killable, this level is all about avoiding. But if you've gotten this far, then I'm sure your skills are honed enough to get past them. Just like in Stage 6, there's only one long stretch before fighting the boss. The final boss is this giant melty face that rises from the ground, causing rock debris to fly everywhere. After hitting him enough times, it returns to the ground and tries to attack you with his giant melty arms. It doesn't seem too hard at first, but once you realize that the flying rock debris fall in random locations and the arms start to come up more frequently, it becomes quite the challenge to avoid damage. On top of that, he has a lot of health, nearly as much as the heart from Stage 6. All I can say about the hands is that you should always run away from them and only jump to avoid if you have to, because after you dodge one from jumping, the other one's bound to get you. As for the falling debris, like I said before, they seem to fall in random places. So you really just need to keep trying until you get good at dodging his attacks and hope that a stray rock doesn't hit you too often. But oh, that last fateful attempt, you'll feel it, and when you land that last hit and you see that the boss is defeated, you'll be raising your fists into the air cheering. What looks like the spirit of whatever was haunting the mansion is released, and the credits start to roll. Whew, it's finally over. Well, what can I say about Splatterhouse? It's extremely challenging but satisfying as hell. For a game that came out in the 80s, the visuals are very impressive. And it's crazy to think a game as explicitly violent as this existed back then. Although I can kinda see why they went the beat-em-up direction with the remake, it's just too mind-numbing and monotonous. I mean, come on, ripping monsters apart shouldn't get dull. With the original Splatterhouse, you're always fighting some new enemy or noticing something different. Like here, it took me a while to realize that the dismembered arms flip you off. That's hilarious. In the end, I definitely prefer a very challenging game that requires the skills of time button pressing and memorizations of patterns, to a moderately challenging game that mainly requires you to grind for hours. So if you can somehow get your hands on the original arcade cabinet of Splatterhouse, or find the port for the TurboGrafx 16, or play through some of the remake and unlock it like I did, then I highly recommend you check it out. But I must warn you, this game is not for the faint of heart, or the faint of patience. Well, what are you doing watching this video anyways? It's Halloween. Go have some fun.